The following podcast contains spoilers for the Raid Redemption and the Raid 2 Berandal. You have been warned.
Welcome back, everybody, to KFR News Radio. This is your host, Glenjamin Button, here with your host, Miguel Mugusto. Hello, friend. How are you? Ooh, sip.
I'm good. How are you?
Cheerio, my friend. Cheerio.
That's great. Great to hear. Hey, I got a question for you.
Bring it on.
And you should get this one, I'm hoping. Spacecraft Nostromo appears in which movie?
Nostromo?
Nostromo.
Sounds like an Italian dish.
It's a movie you recently watched. With that hint, if I give you multiple choice, you're probably going to get it right. Anyway, multiple choice is Interstellar, Alien, Gravity, or 2001: A Space Odyssey.
What were the options?
Interstellar, Gravity, Alien, or 2001: A Space Odyssey.
I assume it was Alien because that was the most recent one I've seen.
Exactly. Ding, 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 ding.
I haven't seen Interstellar in a hot damn minute.
How you been doing? How's your movie life?
What did I see? I feel like I did see something in between the raid, but I also don't think I did see something. So, the classic case of me. I think I only did see the raid movies. So,
yeah.
As far as that goes, that's what I did see.
Wow.
Other than that, in my life, not bad. Not bad.
Good. Glad to hear it.
We are actually going to see either Shazam tonight or tomorrow. So, by next podcast, we can probably speak further on that.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear it. So last week I saw only 2 movies, which is shocking, but seems unfortunately to be the trending topic with how busy I am with things right now. But the first one I watched was The Best Years of Our Lives, which is a William Wyler film from 1946. Essentially tells the story of 3 World War II veterans as they return home. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's in that book of 1001 movies you must see before you die, which is the reason I watched it.
Are you back on that list?
Yeah, I am back on that list.
Right.
And probably the most notable thing about it is one of the main characters is a double amputee who was an actual World War II veteran who was an actual double amputee. And for being someone who wasn't an actor, he was phenomenal and actually won the Oscar for Best Supporting Role.
Good job for him.
Yeah, good for him. Then I saw Terry Gilliam's cursed film, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. Yeah, it's pretty decent. You could definitely tell that they had troubles making it because it just seemed sloppy at parts, not in a bad way, but
Yeah.
Terry Gilliam usually has things honed in, and this one seemed somewhat all over the place. But I really enjoyed it. It was a fun watch.
Okay.
But, yeah, short discussion for those this week because that's all I saw. So.
Oh yeah, so I'm back up in Pennsylvania this weekend. You know this, but everybody else doesn't. And I know that this is one of your most hated movies. So when I got in to my mom's, they were watching Get Him to the Greek.
Oh God. Ugh. Ugh. I hate that movie.
And they find it hilarious. They're not huge movie people, so so to them it's excusable, but I thought that would be funny for you to hear.
It's so bad. It's such easy humor and not even funny. But hey, if they can enjoy it, good for them.
Yeah. But anyway, that's a little touch of a lemon that you should taste and scrunch your mouth to.
I'm scrunching my mouth hardcore right now.
Let's move on to the real reason why we're here, people. The one that made you spend money if you actually do follow us in our movies. So, The Raid.
kita kedatangan tamu tadi undang. Selamat bekerja. Dan jangan lupa bersenang-senang.
The Raid Redemption from 2011, directed by comeback star. We talked about him once here on Keystone Film Review before, from the movie Apostle, Gareth Evans. And also written by Gareth Evans. It stars, and I apologize so freaking hard for this, Iko Uwais, Anada George, Ray Sahet. Why did I struggle on George? That was the easiest part. Did you hear that? Ray Sahetapi. And there's a bunch of other people, but I don't think we want to see me struggle. So, a SWAT team becomes trapped in a tenement run by... God damn me. A SWAT team becomes trapped in a tenement run by a ruthless mobster and his army of killers and thugs.
Ooh, killers and thugs.
Super, super easy plot.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is an action movie and goes full throttle throughout the whole way.
It does.
I think I watched this movie. I heard about it a lot when it came out, but I think I actually watched this movie around 2013 or 2014.
I watched it in 2014 because I don't want to say I had avoided it, but I didn't actively search for it.
Yeah.
And then I saw it was playing at the Regal Oaks, a theater nearby, the second one, not the first one. And I was like, hey, I haven't seen the first one. And it was on Netflix, luckily. So I watched it at like 3 a.m. and then woke up at noon the next day and went and saw the second one. So I watched these very close together both times that I've watched them.
I think, if I remember correctly, I saw this because there was a lot of talk about it when it originally came out, and then I finally saw it at Best Buy, and it was real cheap, and I was like, that bastard's mine.
Yeah.
It's all mine. So I remember buying it.
Yeah. One thing we're going to talk about the first one first, but something that is very apparent, and because I watched both so closely together each time, while the cinematography in The Raid Redemption isn't bad, it is very obvious that they had more resources at their disposal for Raid 2.
Because the second one blows it away.
The cinematography in the second film is like pure artistry. Like it really follows that rule, every frame of painting kind of thing, which is a dumb rule if you ask me, but I do understand like the mindset behind it. And just out of curiosity, I went to check the budget for both films just to see exactly how much more room they were dealing with. The first film was, I think, 1.1 million, which is amazing that they made it for that little. And then the second one is 4 times that much, which
4.5
million, which, you know, I feel like Indonesia is easier to make a film in than the States, because the States, that would like barely be able to afford like a one set 2 characters kind of film.
What's crazy to me is I'm looking at the gross in the USA, and the movie made $4 million.
The first one?
Yeah, the first one made $4 million, and then you go to the second one. The second one made only 2.6 in USA.
I don't think. I don't know. I really think the length for the second one probably hurt it as far as ticket sales go. Not quality, but definitely ticket sales. Because unfortunately, there are people out there that will avoid a over 2-hour movie like it's a plague, unless of course it's fucking Marvel Avengers Endgame, and then they're just talking about, oh, it's 3 hours, it's gonna be so great. It's like, bitch, you don't like long movies. What are you talking about?
You're gonna have to pee, and then you're gonna hate yourself, and then you already hate yourself now as a human being. But here we are.
But the action in this is second to none, in my opinion. Like
absolutely,
both films, the choreography and just the way it's shot, the action in general is just amazing, and really is the reason these films do so great. Because at least for the first one, the plot is more or less Judge Dredd. Obviously, not set in the future and not, not.
Well, I wonder when which one came out first.
Well, the Judge Dredd came out first, like the one with Sylvester Stallone, which is based on a comic book.
Was that the same plot? I didn't watch that one. I only heard stupid lines about it.
More
was
or
it
less.
The same plot where they're going into a complex and then?
Yes.
Okay.
It's
because
not.
I know the Carl Urban one is pretty much the exact same thing.
Yeah, but the second one.
Do you hear that banging?
I do. It's fine. We'll just muscle through it.
That's my nephew.
The remake with Carl Urban, which is just called Dread, came out after the Raid, and you can tell they definitely took some cinematography notes from it. Especially, there's one scene in particular where they throw a grenade into a room, and it's slow motion, and there's just a bunch of drug dealers in there, and even to the point where like. Part of the climax of the movie takes place where they separate like the drugs or package the drugs. That happens in Dread as well. So you could tell that Dread was definitely heavily influenced by the Raid Redemption, and not in a bad way. I mean, they both pull from each other. While I do think the Sylvester Stallone Judge Dredd probably explores more, I do think the basic synopsis is the same.
Yeah.
But, it's just kind of cool to see two movies bounce off each other. And actually, looking at it, the synopsis is kind of vague, but it might not be just them stuck in an apartment complex, but who knows?
I'm pretty sure that I'm not. Obviously, I didn't see the movie, so I can't talk too much. But I'm pretty sure there was a little bit more to the Judge Dredd with Sylvester Stallone.
I haven't seen it pretty much since I was 11, and that was on TV. It
only came out in 95. It feels so much older.
It does, yeah. But it was on TV when I watched it, so I don't really remember much of it. So I assumed that, incorrectly, obviously, that the plot was relatively the same. Yeah. But with that in mind, Dredd definitely takes a huge note and from the Raid.
It really does.
But you know what? They're both great movies. I enjoy both of them.
But yeah, one of the super awesome things about this movie and what really made it stand above most of it, it's such a simple thing too, like a simple plot.
It's kind of
like even the synopsis is one sentence. A SWAT team becomes trapped in a tenement run by a ruthless mobster and his army of killers and thugs. That's it. That's the whole movie right there.
Yeah, it is. And honestly, it doesn't need more than that. It's kind of like while Snowpiercer at its core is more complex, and this is more complex if you include the second film, because the second film definitely adds some depth to it.
Yeah.
But, just the entire thing for both this and Snowpiercer is get from point A to point B. Mm-hmm. In Snowpiercer, it's from the back of the train to the front of the train, and this is from the bottom floor to the top floor. It really kind of is a great way to tell stories because it keeps the goal in mind throughout the entire thing, even if it is like just a simple goal. It's easy to keep track of what's going on, and. The acting in this is phenomenal. Most of these guys are, for lack of a better word, just stuntmen because they all do their own stunts. But they really,
regardless, they really held their own. Yes, acting performances.
In my opinion, Mad Dog, the guy who plays Yahya Ruhian, he's also the choreographer for the film, both films too. So he did more than just act in it. But he's my favorite character in the entire thing. He's a complete badass, and how they use him in the second film kind of really shows. It kind of adds to it, but we'll get that there when we get there in to the second film.
Yeah, the best part about it is he's so small too, and he's so agile and just ruthless.
Yeah, that's really his weakness too. Is like you could see when they just pick him up and throw him with ease, but like it's so hard for them to get to the point where they can just pick him up. And I think they did a really good job at making the fights realistic while still stylized.
Yeah.
They did a good job at making them seem chaotic and random, even though for a fact they were choreographed to a T. Everything seemed fluid and improvised in the moment, even though if it was done that way, people would have died.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, this movie, and there's not really, what's crazy about it is this movie's so good that there's not too much to say about it. Because it's such a simple movie, the plot, the fight choreography and all that, it's super simple.
Yeah.
Like, it's so well done in its form that you don't really have to talk about it. It's one of those movies where you just got to watch it and just enjoy it.
Yeah.
Now,
And
the second one's a whole different story, but I mean, we'll get to that after this one.
I really, it's really cool to see different kind of martial arts styles that you don't normally see utilized. In this, they use the Indonesian martial art called pencak silat, oftentimes just called salat. But it's from what I've read, it's essentially just a close fighting martial arts style, which is really perfect for this. It really, you can see even in probably the most famous shot from the second one, they get real close before they even start fighting, and it's just really it's a beautiful, for lack of a better word, fighting style. It's just it's so cool to look at and really enjoyable to watch, really, and it's great. It's fantastic. They did a great job.
And obviously another notable thing is the soundtrack was done by the good old Mike Shinoda.
I actually, the first time I watched it, I listened to the Mike Shinoda one, but I listened to the original soundtrack today when I watched it, and I honestly can't remember the Mike Shinoda one, but I remember it seeming more professional than this one.
Yeah.
Not that it's bad. It's just
it was also it was more or less written by Mike Shinoda and performed by Chino Marino.
Yeah.
Which no offense, I don't even know who that is. Oh my God, that's the guy from what the fuck? Oh my God, my head's gonna explode.
From Deftones.
Yes. Oh my God,
Yeah.
I kept saying like White Pony, which I think is one of his songs.
Yeah.
Or it's an album.
That's
anyway.
crazy. I didn't know that he performed it.
Huh. Okay, well that makes sense.
Yeah.
But anyway, those two had a really heavy hand in the movie soundtrack, which I thought was really good. Definitely, it felt more. Now that I know that it's more Chino, it felt more Chino's than it did Mike Shinoda.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Yeah, I'd have to watch it with that soundtrack again because I don't really quite remember it. But yeah, there's really not much. I was trying to find things that I didn't care for, but it's really just a solid movie.
Yeah.
If anything, I could say some of the secondary actors or whatever leave a little bit to desired. And I'm talking about the people that just come in and die immediately. But, they're more stuntmen than they are actors. So I can definitely let that slide, where their job is to come in, make 3 or 4 really cool moves, and then die. So you can't really hold that against them too much. But I just think it's really cool that a Welsh director and Gareth Evans made these movies. I believe his wife is Vietnamese or Indonesian, not Vietnamese, and he probably lived there for a while, which is why he was inspired to do this. But I just thought it's really cool.
I feel like there's one more thing I had to say about it. Oh yeah, so when the movie started, it started out with a English dub.
So did mine.
And for a second there, I'm like, I don't remember it being English. And then I actually started watching it, and I'm like, their mouths aren't synced up. I'm gonna switch to that. I thought it was Chinese or Japanese originally, so I switched it to that. I'm like, it still feels weird. And then I forgot. I 100% forgot it was like Indonesian.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is so much better. Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, but I think it's one of the underrated performances. I think he dies in the movie, so he's not in the second one. But Joe Taslim, who plays the sergeant, he's kind of like the asshole cop in the beginning, and then he kind of redeems himself. Is in the first real fight with Mad Dog, where you really realize how crazy and powerful Mad Dog is. he did a really great job.
He gets cut a little too early, but I mean, obviously he had to be used for Mad Dog's ruthlessness, but yeah, he was cut too short or too soon.
I think it would have been cool to see him more fleshed out too, but
yeah,
it's definitely just me nitpicking more or less with that.
Yeah, pretty much. It's really hard to do, but if you had to do it, that would be one of them. All right. Well, that's all I've got for the first one.
Same here. I mean, I do want to mention that one of the you find out one of the drug lords or one of the two right-hand men of the drug lord is the main character, Iko Uwais, his brother. You find that out kind of probably in the beginning of the third act. I just wanted to mention that because it's relevant for the Raid 2.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into the Raid 2.
Nama saya Rama. Saya tahu siapa kamu. Abang saya bilang, saya bisa percaya Bapak. Abang lu nggak salah. Lu suka atau tidak suka dengan peristiwa hari ini, Reza dan anak buahnya akan ngincer lu. Mereka akan ngincer lu sampai ketemu. Kalau kita nggak cepat bertindak, lu bakal hilang. Keluarga lu juga. Sekarang ini kota dibagi rata. Antara tokoh kita bangun dan Kotogumi keluarga Jepang. Uco, anaknya bangun, sekarang ada di penjara. Ini saat yang tepat buat lu masuk dan dekatin dia. Gue mau lu gabung sama tim gue. Lu bakal dilatih ulang sampai lu punya kemampuan yang lebih baik untuk membela kepentingan yang benar. Artinya, lu harus gue tangkap.
The Raid 2, also directed by Gareth Evans, also written by Gareth Evans, and it doesn't also say this, but it was also edited by Gareth Evans. So he went all out for this fucking film. Only a short time after the first raid, Rama goes undercover with the thugs of Jakarta, even though it's not supposed to be in Spanish, but I put that little twang on it, and plans to bring down the syndicate and uncover the corruption within his police force.
You all right? Do you have a stroke?
No, dude. I am having a stroke on the constant.
Only a short time after the first raid, Rama goes undercover with the thugs of Jakarta and plans to bring down the syndicate and uncover the corruption within his police force. There you go.
Not so easy, is it, boy?
Well, I just read corporate instead of corruption. That's the only thing I messed up on.
Uncorruption.
Uncorruption.
Anyway.
So believe it or not, Glenn, I don't know if you know this, but this is the sequel to The Raid Redemption.
Which always throws me off because the Raid Redemption, I feel like is like because the word redemption's in there, like there was a movie before the Raid Redemption.
Yeah. Or
that could just be me and I'm just dumb.
Well, the thing is, the poster says it's just the Raid. So yeah, I don't know what's going on.
I don't know. It always says with the Raid Redemption for me on like anything, and then it says just the Raid on most other things. I'm like, what color me confused? But anyway, this is the sequel to the Raid Redemption, as you said. Pretty much has kind of the cast.
Well, really, the only
it's like two or three, four people.
Yeah, Iko Uwais, who plays Rama, he's the main character, Rama. So he's still in it. You have the brother who dies almost immediately, which is actually a great way to start the second one. And then you have Yayan Rohian, who plays a completely different character, but I kind of like it. the way they used him. And yeah, I think it's a great follow up. It's kind of going into.
Oh, see, I thought he was playing the same character the whole time,
No.
and me, I'm like, how the fuck did he live after that first one?
No, he definitely dies in the first one.
Okay.
See, it's only really clear because I watched them both back to back each time I watched them.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you have some time in between them, I can see it getting confusing. He definitely dies in the first one. Mad Dog dies in the first one. In this one, they gave him some gray hair to try to change him. They made him more of a I don't want to say sensitive man because he's still a stone cold killer, but he's got a backstory with like a son and a ex-wife and everything, and you could tell he actually cares for people. Whereas Mad Dog just like, I'll kill anything that gets in my way. And the cool thing they do with him is he is probably the most badass character in the first one. He's he's tougher than anyone. He's the hardest person to kill in the first one. And in this, they kind of use that. They have this awesome fight with him and then have the guy who's kind of taking over that crown as being the toughest badass in the movie ends up killing him, kind of finishes the job. He doesn't fight him throughout the entire thing, but it kind of shows that where Mad Dog's character will kind of fight tooth and nail himself, this other character, while he is badass, will also make you fight a bunch of other people beforehand.
Yeah.
And then will be just as merciless. And I didn't really realize that until I watched it today. And it's just kind of a cool little thing that they did.
I wish they like changed something about his face other than the hair.
Yeah, I could see it being confusing, but I
obviously just wasn't paying attention hard enough. See, in my mind, I'm like, nah, he was fucking dead. And then in my mind, I was like, okay, maybe somehow he survived, and maybe he's like the family friend to this like a mob family. I'm like, okay, maybe I could see that.
No, yeah, it's definitely confusing if you're not kind of looking at it that way. But he's a different character. I don't know exactly why they did that. I haven't heard anything from. I watched a lot of behind the scenes things today while I was waiting for you, and I didn't really find any information out about that. I think it's just kind of this is the way it is.
Back on because he's so badass.
Yeah, he's great. And like we said before, he's a decent actor too for being a choreographer, more or less.
Mm-hmm. And see, that actually, now that I know that's not the same character, that actually helps so much. Because I was gonna complain about this, because I thought it was the same character. I was like, all right, so he went to this ruthless, ridiculous man in the first one to now he's trying to be like a family man in this one, and they try to give him some like emotional backdrop before they killed him off.
And there's definitely only 2 years in between the majority of this movie and the first one, so there's definitely not enough time for that to have actually happened. Now, if there's something like 10 years later, that could make sense, but this is only 2 years later.
Yeah.
And, with Rama working undercover, going to prison and everything, he kind of gets in way over his head. Mm-hmm. But because of this, has some remarkable fight scenes in the prison. Most notably in the mud in the yard in the prison. That whole sequence is just spectacular. And same with the fighting in the bathroom sequence. Like the whole series is just filled with great fight scenes.
So a big thing I did want to talk about is the huge difference between the two movies. Obviously, the first one was super simplistic. Obviously, we didn't have too much to talk about. It was very easy to just nail what we had to. This one was it's amazing, the two, like how completely different they are, because the story itself is obviously much more complicated than the first one. The cinematography is much more different than the first one. The choreography and all the fight sequences, there was many more, and like it's night and day. Like although they are the same movie pretty much, there's so much more this one was put into, like more thought put into it.
Yeah, you could tell that this kind of seemed like the way, completely getting rid of the first movie and getting rid of the brother subplot in this one. I feel like this is what he wanted the first one to be, was a cop going undercover into prison to protect this politician's son, corrupt politician's son, to kind of gain intel and everything. And I feel like that's what he wanted it to be, but because of budget restraints and everything, couldn't.
Yeah.
So then he altered it to be this raid, and he did a really good job of kind of melding the two together. Once he was given the opportunity to, but he's just if I had to anything to complain about the second one, it's that having to read subtitles and also keep track of the plot is kind of difficult at times.
Yeah.
But again, that's more just like a language thing than it is the actual movie.
So see, the first time I watched the second movie, I didn't like it that much. I was still a fan of the first one more than the second one.
Yeah.
And now rewatching the second one, I have a greater appreciation for it.
Yeah, I think it definitely, especially going in expecting something so close to the first one and then it just being similar but completely different because of the scale. I was kind of on the same boat where it definitely...
I also believe I wasn't
was disappointing, but
paying attention when I first saw the second one.
It's smarter.
More or less
so
my fault.
You have to pay attention to this one. Like the first one, you can have just kind of on in the background and be able to kind of keep track of what's going on. But this one, you have to pay attention.
Yeah, you have to pay attention. You have to hear who people are talking to and about who they're talking to specifically.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, you're just gone. And really, this movie is so good because it sets you up right from the get-go of what the tone is going to be. And the tone is brutal. Yeah. It's going to be brutal, this whole movie. There's going to be a lot of blood. And that was another thing about the first one, was most of the blood in the first one was digital. There's a nice little segue there. I don't know how I pulled that off.
The first one, the blood is digital?
Most of it. I'm not going to say all of it. But like whenever somebody got stabbed, there'd be like a splatter of blood, and it seemed digital. This one, there was much more practical blood, especially at the end of the movie where the assassin and Rama were fighting. It's just blood everywhere. Yeah. And I'm glad they went that route instead of doing digital, because they don't hold back on this movie. No,
they don't. Can we talk about that final fight scene you just mentioned? It's between Rama and the guy who kills Yahya Ruhian's character, who kind of takes over as the badass role. His he has these like curved knives. First of all, I timed that sequence. That entire fight sequence is 7 minutes long. Which is incredibly long for a single scene in any movie, let alone a fight sequence. And it doesn't get boring. The fear with scenes in general, and especially fight scenes, is making them boring or repetitive, and they just find new ways to keep it fresh and keep it going. And it's intense. You worry if, is this going to be where Rama really gets killed or taken down.
You definitely felt like it was for a little bit there, you felt like he was definitely going to lose.
Yeah. So in the first one, they have the fight with Mad Dog, which is kind of, you can swap these two out as like the climax of the film on either end. And, while the fight with Mad Dog is intense and has situations where you're not sure how it's going to end, you never think Rama's going to die. You think sometimes his brother who's there with him might die, but you never think Rama's going to die or get seriously injured. And in this, you're just like, I'm sure he's gonna win because he hasn't gotten to the main guy yet.
But he's getting pretty jacked up.
Yeah, but to what extent is he going to get to this guy? Like, how healthy is he going to be when he gets to this guy?
Yeah.
And, it's just, again, with the that Salat martial arts style with the close fighting, it just adds a whole intensity to it. And I read that most, if not all, of the punches in both movies were real, just, with reduced strength on their parts, which is just remarkable. I don't know how they didn't just die.
Well, they were just that good.
Yeah.
I did want to bring this up. I think you did just mention it a little bit ago, that just their attention to detail in this movie, and specifically this movie, especially with the martial arts style, is because, like, you're sitting there in the movie, you're like, all right, well, mobsters, they have guns. Why don't they just use them? And then, like, the martial arts style, like, specifically, they're knocking the guns, like, out of their hands and shit. So, like, they incapacitate them from their long-range weapons, like, so they can fight them close.
Even like a good 30 seconds of the final fight sequence is Rama trying to disarm the other guy who's what's his name? Is it Eka? No, that's the good guy.
No, that's the good guy.
But yeah, he's trying to take the knives out of his opponent's hands.
Mm-hmm. That's just the assassin. He didn't have a name.
Oh yeah, that's right. He is just called the assassin. But he's it's really cool to see, like, all of the different styles of Salat, with defense and offense, and just trying to not get cut.
Yeah, and another thing I did want to mention is, like, for obviously for a minute there, I'm like, why doesn't he just pick up the weapons and just fight the next batch of people with the weapons? But what he ends up doing is, when he starts the fight, he goes hand to hand, and then he gets their weapons and finish them basically with their own weapons. Yeah. For each person too. So like the hammer girl fucking murdered with her own hammers.
Oh, I didn't even realize that. That yeah, you're right.
Baseball boy got smashed in the fucking skull. Mm-hmm. He basically does that with each of his opponents. He goes into it hand to hand, gets them close, and then uses their own weapons against them. And it's such a cool little detail.
Absolutely.
And you're sitting there like, why doesn't he just use the? Because he's a badass. Does he really need to?
Yeah, really.
Does he need a gun? Or any other things other than his weapons of fists.
Also, he might not have a gun, and they do a really good job at showing you when a gun is out of ammo.
Yeah.
And yeah, this whole series is just incredibly shot. I know I was watching behind the scenes thing. Gareth Evans was editing while on set. Obviously not the final edit, but just to see how things flowed together, so they could tell if they needed another shot or what have you. And it definitely shows that they had that kind of opportunity to see what was needed, and if they were missing a shot, they could just get it right then and there instead of coming back months later and having it be different.
Yeah. There's two other scenes that I really want to talk about specifically before we go any further, I think, with this movie. The club scene with Yayan's character. Mm-hmm. Why isn't that more talked about? Like, you hear about Collateral and you hear about the John Wick club scenes and how badass those ones are. Yeah. But this one, the dude kills a whole mob by himself, basically, and it's not talked about by anybody.
I think it's because people haven't really seen this movie.
Fuck them.
Yeah, really. People have definitely seen the first one, but they haven't seen this one, which, if you're going to start a series, finish it. For God's sake.
For sure, I think this scene is underrated as a club scene because you don't hear about it in the slightest. And other than that, the other scene that I wanted to talk about was the car chase scene with Eka's character coming after Rama. When he gets captured is probably one of the greatest driving sequences I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, there's a clip from behind the scenes that
Oh yeah.
I'm sure even if you haven't seen the movie, you've seen it's on Instagram like pretty much every other day.
Yeah, I was supposed to say it's definitely the one thing that has been
where they
viral about this movie.
Yeah, there's a camera guy. You see it all from outside the car. There's this camera guy in one car or hanging out of one car. He passes the camera to a guy who's dressed like a car seat, like a chair in a car, headrest and everything. And then he's running the car, and then the window breaks, and then he jumps out the back window
Yep.
and just hangs out of the window to get the final part of the shot. And it's an incredible shot. And to see that they did it without using any kind of super expensive equipment or minimal CGI, because I'm sure they definitely use CGI to hide the camera guy dressed as a seat better, but not to. They didn't have to use anything to cut it together. It's all done practically, and that's just the kind of details that I feel are really missed in modern movies. Things look better when they're done practically. That is not an opinion, that is fact. And anyone who watches 2 movies a year would agree with that. Just if you do something for real, it looks better than if you do it in post. And that's something that I feel is definitely lost on a lot of films these days.
And I think the very last thing I really wanted to touch on, since we just touched on it a little bit there, with the whole car cinematography part, was this is really how you do shaky cam. Like it wasn't shaky cam. It was controlled free. Like obviously it wasn't on a tripod or anything. It was all freehand, and it wasn't shaking like crazy. Like the camera moved with each hit perfectly. That it seemed like it was a little bit of shaky. But like it was all freehand and it wasn't crazy, so you could actually see each punch and what was actually going on, instead of like all these movies that just like, we're just gonna shake this thing like crazy and hope it does. You could probably see it, right? Okay, it's perfect.
Well,
let it roll.
I think the difference between those movies and this movie is the reason that shaky cam gets so bad is because they use longer lenses, and I think that comes with not trusting your stunt people, so you want to give them room.
Yeah.
And in this, you have trained martial artists, so you can get up close with a wide-angle lens, which will show minimal shake, and know that if they start to fall, that they won't knock into you. They're so good at their craft that if something goes wrong, they'll be able to readjust and not break anything or hurt anyone. So you're absolutely right. The shaky cam in this is done well, and I really think that's just out of just sheer trust. They get the camera in the behind the scenes. They get the camera within 6 inches of like flying fists and everything, and that comes from knowing that your performers won't hurt the camera or you or themselves.
There was 100% trust in these movies.
Yeah, and I think people should use wide lenses more when it comes to shaky cam, because it definitely doesn't work when you have long lenses, that's for sure.
But other than that, I think that's all I've got.
Yeah, same here. So, we have come to the judgment. We are talking about The Raid and The Raid 2, both of which Monsieur Glenn picked, so
Yay.
you're going to start with both of them.
All right. The Raid. Redemption. I didn't have anything bad about this movie. Everything was good about it. It was simple, it was sweet, it was beautiful, it was perfect in my opinion, and it deserves a shelf boy.
I would agree.
And then
there's the Raid makes it to the shelf.
It's a shelf boy right there. Holy crap. And then we move on to the Raid 2. A not so easy choice, is it? We've got a little bit more of a complex story. We've got so much more to lose here if we say a shelf boy is on for a second time. But we're here to lose things. We're here at KFR. We're here to lose. It's a shelf boy, goddammit.
So the Raid, you say the Raid 2 is a shelf boy as well?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, that's good because I was going to say, regardless, that these movies to me are more like one long movie that just gets split up because they need to sell it that way.
Yeah.
So to me, The Raid is both the first and the second one all together. So you can't have the first one without the second one. I mean, you can, but it doesn't really.
It's not feel right.
Yeah, it's not the finale of the story. And the second film ends with Rama saying that the Japanese gang is trying to recruit Rama, and he says, "No, I'm done." It's not going any further than there. At least I hope it's not going any further than there.
Yeah. Actually, I wanted to comment on that since you're going to say that. I really hope, at the same time, I really don't hope that they make a third one. Obviously, story-wise, I hope they do not make a third one. They don't need to unless Rama's family gets murdered brutally by somebody.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I really want one. But at the same time,
I'm
really
in the same
don't.
boat. I'm in the same boat as you. It definitely does not warrant one, although I would not argue if they made one. But that being said, both The Raid and The Raid 2 are shelf boys. They have made it onto the shelf. Fwah, 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 fwah. And that brings us to next week's films. Last week, Glenn picked a double feature for The Raid and The Raid 2. So I decided that this week I will also pick a double feature. They are not really connected films other than by the writer and director.
Oh, look at that.
And the internet unfortunately did not get their wish yet, but these are hopefully two of the three in what will be the Color Trilogy by Jeremy Saulnier. For those of you who don't know what the Color Trilogy is, Jeremy Saulnier's first two movies have colors in them, and people being stupid were just like, you should make a third one that's a color one, it'll be the Color Trilogy. And then he didn't make a third one with a color in it. But anyway, so the first one is Blue Ruin, written and directed by Jeremy Saulnier, starring Macon Blair, Yalbier Orozco, Ronald Sarkos, and Danny Santiago.
I actually remember watching this movie.
And that is available on Netflix. Netflix sponsor us. Blue Ruin tells the story of a mysterious outsider's quiet life is turned upside down when he returns to his childhood home to carry out an act of vengeance. Proving himself an amateur assassin, he winds up in a brutal fight to protect his estranged family. So that, you can check that out on Netflix. The second one is Green Room, also written and directed by Jeremy Saulnier, starring Anton Yelchin, rest in power, Joe Cole, Alia Shawkat, Callum Turner, Imogen Putz, and Patrick. Why is his name? I can't find him. I know he's in it. Patrick Stewart. How could I forget his name? I'm so sorry.
How could you
Patrick
forget
Stewart.
Sir Patrick Stewart?
I forgot the last part. I'm sorry. And Green Room tells the story of a punk rock band that is forced to fight for survival after witnessing a murder at a neo-Nazi skinhead bar. That is also available on Netflix. Netflix sponsor us.
Please.
And hopefully Jeremy Saulnier will one day finish the Color Trilogy. If not, it's not a big deal because they're all standalone movies and it doesn't really, it's kind of like the Blood and Ice Cream Trilogy by Edgar Wright. It's just it'd be something fun.
Just do your own thing, man.
Yeah, it'd be something fun to talk about. But that will do it for this week. As always, you can follow us on Instagram at Keystone_film_review. On Facebook, we are Keystone Film Review. On Letterboxd, I am Mike KFR.
And I am Glenn KFR.
Hey, okay. Calm down there. It's all right. And that will do it for this week. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.